And at that time, how they programmed all the groups was they wrote everybody's name down on a little slip of paper, kind of torn up in 8.5 by 11 sheets, in these little sort of 2-inch square raggle-taggle slips of paper, and it had a name and an instrument on it, and they shuffled all these around until they came up with groups for everybody. It was kind of amusing and pretty scary, because every now and then a slip of paper would fall off the table and get lost, and someone wouldn't get programmed. And it was about, I guess it was around probably 62 or maybe a little bit later that Ruth developed the boards. And they were pretty structured affairs, and we had these little 2.5 by 3.5 cards with everybody's name on it and instrument, and they were color-coded by what instrument you played, and things became a lot more organized.
I first knew of Mary Ann when I was attending Marshall School, and she became the kindergarten teacher. I was in the upper grades at that time.
That's a long time ago.
Well, I was studying violin with Esther Thompson at the time, and Esther was in the first group of attendees, and I'm sure that she encouraged me to be there, as well as Louis Weichselfelder. He was the orchestra conductor at Eureka High, and he wanted me to go to music camp and just take advantage of any opportunities like that. Yes, it was exactly the same, although there were fewer people in attendance, so there was just one program in the evening. I believe today they have an afternoon program as well as an evening program. Definitely, the main one is sitting right here with me. Mary Ann and I have played in orchestra and in string quartets almost ever since that time. I have kept in touch with Barbara Harding McMean, who is a very good friend. She was with me in high school and was probably one of the reasons I attended that summer. Barbara lives in Reno now and has returned for several of the workshops, but we've kept in touch all of these years, and she stays here when she comes back in the summer. Also, my future sister-in-law to be, I didn't know that at that time, but Dorothy Gerland was part of that workshop. And we think of Dan Gurnay. We serve on the community concert board with Dan, and Doris Eikenberry, and Julie Fulkerson, and many of the others.
Jean Fulkerson was not so much teaching in the schools, but making music available to everyone in the community, just by herself, playing with her husband. She did a great deal carrying chamber music to all of the schools. But Jean was a real mover where chamber music was concerned, especially getting strings together. Yes, from the very beginning I was a participant. I was playing piano, and I was playing bass and cello, and Floyd decided after a while that I should be a coach. And so I was a coach probably till the early 80s. In the early days, it was to make available and encourage chamber music for everyone. And we had people who were, I think, over 80 in the workshop, and we had children who were beginners, just very, very beginner, but with good encouragement and coaching, they were doing performances. And Those early performances were really astounding. No matter how a group performed, they received ovation. They were encouraged. It was more than in the attempt, but the result of what they had accomplished through the day, and then getting up and playing in front of an audience. Charles, well, you can't cover Charles enough, because Charles and Jean have always been at the forefront in making music available to the community. And Floyd came along, and that was a great enhancement. And so the three of them were doing a great deal of performing. Now this is, but Charles and Jean and Floyd were not necessarily a nucleus, because all of the music teachers made a nucleus. But Charles and Jean and Floyd, I don't know what to call them, except that they were a very important part of making music happen in Humboldt County. And when they decided on the Chamber Workshop, that was, what do you call it? A leap. So I don't know who to cover without feeling that I'm leaving someone out. It wasn't as though you had to have music to be a good person, or music was essential for the culture of the world or the county. But it's that, like life, music just was, and without it, the culture and the aura of a community was missing a great deal. My part as a technician, it was very large. I was repairing people's own instruments, and of course taking care of the university instruments, which were on loan to the participants. Everything was available. And I was delighted to play that part. And I say, play in truth, because that's what it was for me.
In '63, there was no chamber music workshop because Charlie Fulkerson was on sabbatical leave studying piano in Vienna, having a great time soaking up the culture. And there was such a hue and cry from all the people that had, by word of mouth at that point, coming, we were probably up to about 50 or 60 players, that in '64, Floyd asked me if I would be his associate and start the workshop again, because Charlie still wouldn't be back. And so I said, yeah, sure, that'd be great to get the workshop going again. And in 1966, after having taught in public schools for a while, I got a faculty position at Humboldt State College at that time. And the workshop just kept growing and growing and growing, and in 1970, Floyd turned the workshop over to me as the director. And in the late 60s, the workshop was just getting so big, and we could not possibly handle all the people. It was growing to where we had about 90 or 100 people in a waiting list of 40 or 50 people. That was kind of embarrassing to turn so many people away. And so a second week was added in the late 60s, and it rapidly grew by word of mouth.